Hello, hi patrons. I'm back. So I don't know why, but somehow this month I have three or four college talks. I don't know. Y'all be reaching out to me. And I appreciate that. I just like to talk, so it's fun. So today I'm talking to the University of California, San Diego, I think. First of all, I am saying I think because last month I did another college, like a week or two ago, I did another college in San Diego. And I'm like, is my name just being passed around in the San Diego area? Like, what's going on? Anyways, hello. Let me, first of all, make sure that this is even up. Goodness gracious. Oh, and I've been reading The Vanishing Half. I kind of read it last year, but then I quit. And I liked what I read of it last year, but then I quit for some reason. I think I quit reading it because capitalism has warped my brain. And I'll totally acknowledge this. Capitalism has warped my brain, and it's made me think that just reading for pleasure, like reading fiction, is like not useful or productive. And so I started reading it and I really liked it and I thought it was really great. But I was like, there's theory books I could be reading. There's history books I could be reading. Like, why am I not reading that? So then I've heard multiple people over the past couple of months mention it. And then I've seen that it's going to be made into a movie. And then I was like, okay, well, let me just read this freaking book. And now I'm 3/4 of the way through. And let me pretend like I have somewhere to be in 55 minutes, because I do. And so I decided to reread it again. I'm 3/4 of the way through. And I just think it's so interesting. I think that, I think a lot of our conversations around who can tell which stories are really reductive and unproductive. And the incorporation of the Reese character in this novel really just reifies my belief that this idea that you have to have a certain identity to write a certain identity is just not the way to go, right? Because Britt Bennett isn't trans. But I think the Reese character is so good and interesting. But also, there's some really interesting ideas about race in this book, and it just makes me think about the ways we talk about race. Okay, so, gosh, am I going to be able to... Also, the thing I'm really thinking about right now is how much... So sometimes I'm in like full beat mode, and I have a desire to do that, and sometimes I'm not. So today, I am still going to put on makeup, but it's not going to be as extreme, because Jesus said, what? Come as you are. So something I've been thinking about around the race thing is, I know that we are in this time where we're having these really intense conversations about racial boundaries and who gets to be what and percentages and all that. Really, we're really getting deep, we're really reviving the race science. But I'm not sure that it's useful for us to like collapse our understanding of race and Blackness and who is Black. And what I mean by that is, I wouldn't go to Brazil or South Africa and try to dictate for them like what the racial category should be. And I think that because the United States has a really distinct history, that there's going to be a specific way that we deal with and talk about race. And I'm not sure that it's useful for the racial conversation, the conversation about racial distinction in the United States, to be collapsed in with the conversation about race in the continent of Africa or Europe. I'm thinking of the United Kingdom in particular, because the way that race works in the United States is so distinct. And so I think that's why so many of these conversations, Clubhouse loves a racial conversation. I think that's why they become so circular, because yes, like the one drop rule is specific to the US context. And I understand that people are like, we need to do away with it. We need to do away with it, but it's too late for that. It's just too, right? It's just like, but it's baked in. It's baked in. And then people are saying, when people are like, the one drop rule is violent. Yes, right? The one drop rule was created by white people to dictate Blackness. Yes. Race is violent, right? Like race is created by whiteness. Like white supremacy created race. There's no way for us to talk about race and Blackness without talking about violence. So I don't know, this idea that by erecting these hard boundaries that we are extracting the violence from, it's no. So that's what I've been thinking about that. Let me pull up my list of Evernote. But also because, I know that the really common thing here. So anyways, I'm not gonna recap what The Vanishing Half is about, right? But the two main characters are about two women who are Black, but they're white passing. And it's so interesting that like in these a lot of these contemporary conversations about Blackness, people would say they're not Black, but Mallard is a Black town, right? And then so then are we going to say, well, they were Black then, but they're not Black now? But there are still people, this is obviously fiction, but like I bring up Drew Dixon all the time because we, developed a relationship, right? But Drew Dixon is the center of the On the Record documentary about how Russell Simmons was out here raping people in the 90s. And so then you have people who say, everybody in my family is Black and who look like Drew Dixon. They're not Black. But that only happens because of the very specific history of race in the United States. And it's not useful for us to pretend like that history is not present. I do think that there are different kinds of Black people and different kinds of Black experiences. And it's not useful for us to pretend like the dark-skinned Gabrielle Union or Ryan Destiny Black experience is the same as a Drew Dixon Black experience, but the same way that as there are many different kinds of ways to be a woman, right? We have rich women, right? Your experiences of womanhood, the violence and the trauma that you encounter as a rich woman, as a classed woman, as a woman who has access to power and opportunities is going to be different from the experiences of a poor woman. The experiences of a light-skinned Black person are going to be miles apart from the experiences of a dark-skinned Black person, right? There's so much work on this. I'm thinking, I took classes from Jennifer Hochschild, who was a political scientist who did so much work basically on how, the life chances of light-skinned Black people, the differences between the life chances of dark-skinned Black people and light-skinned Black people are basically equivalent to the difference in the life chances between white people and Black people. But they're still Black, right? And I get what people are trying to do, but the idea that whiteness is going to have no impact on how we delineate Blackness is just not. We're calling it Blackness because of white people, because of white supremacy. And there's also Blackness. I think we're struggling so hard right now. What time is it? Okay. In 1 minute, I will start putting on makeup. I think We're struggling so hard right now to define Blackness and erect boundaries and try to make Blackness have some kind of coherent definition, but it cannot have a coherent definition. Blackness in and of itself is incoherent. It does not make sense. Race in and of itself is nonsensical. So trying to retroactively apply all of these logics to it and say, it's this, parents, it's like, ooh, right? When we're talking about a caste system. Anyways, that's what it's made me. Those are my jumbled thoughts about, all of these ongoing battles about who is what and what is what. I'll have to sit down and think through it more. But I don't know. It just is like, and I just think maybe we should just separate it, right? So this is what's happening in the United States. This is what's happening in the UK. This is what's happening in West Africa. This is what's happening in Brazil, in South Africa, because the histories, this is what's happening in the Caribbean, because the histories are distinct. And I understand that, like, I'm not a Pan-Africanist. I don't really subscribe to that, or because I just don't necessarily think it's useful. And I'm not even necessarily like a Black nationalist. And I think that those Pan-African impulses, those nationalistic impulses, are what's driving us to try to collapse this experience and try to find one coherent definition. And it's just never going to work out. It's just never going to happen. Okay, let me pretend like I'm going to be on camera in 45 minutes. What else have I been thinking about? Oh, okay. So I am obsessed with Brit Bennett. I want to try to talk to Brit Bennett because I think that the little one-liners that she has all throughout this book are so good. There are just so many random throwaway lines. Like there was one line, I can't remember if she was talking about like love or desire or partnership, where it was like, all it takes is one. And I think about this all the time. I think because love conversations, I have to brush my teeth now. But it's like when I'm having conversations with friends or seeing these conversations online with people, and like people are so dispirited about their love lives and partnerships. And I don't feel, I have fun with it and I think it's ridiculous, but like, we're supposed to beat ourselves about who desires us and how much, and I understand why we do, but something that I do find to be really comforting, and something that has been really comforting for me, like in this like trying to fornication mission fornicate 2020, right? It's like you just have to find one person. You just have to find one person, right? Like we're like driving ourselves, or we're supposed to, right? Like under like patriarchal logics, women in particular are supposed to drive ourselves crazy because, the aim in, patriarchy is to try to make ourselves as desirable as possible by chasing beauty ideals, by chasing body ideals. And it's like, but really, if we're just talking about partnership, right? Not necessarily how beauty dictates all this other shit. It's just like, find fucking one person that you can stand. And like, it's not easy, okay? Finding the one person who doesn't get on your fucking nerves. But it makes the task seem a lot less daunting. I have to brush my teeth. Oh, huh? Okay, what else is on my list of things that were brought to mind? There was also another line in there that was like, whiteness is about boldness. I think that's so true. It's like I said in that panel video, in the panel discussion with Ugo and Mark and Justin, you know, I said that shamelessness is a tool and shamelessness is a privilege. And so it's so jarring for us when we see Black people, particularly the most marginalized kinds of Black people, be shameless, because we're like, wait, you're violating the social contract. Like, you can't do that. The contract is, the more marginalized you are, the more self-conscious you're supposed to be. The more marginalized you are, the more hyper-aware, self-policing you are supposed to be about your public presentation and orientation. And we get mad at people who transgress those boundaries. We get mad at people who refuse and reject that stuff, because you're like, wait, you're violating the social contract. Now, we didn't make this contract, but we all abide by it. And the contract says that you're supposed to be ashamed. And I think that we see reactions to people all the time that are like, wait, you're not white. You don't get to do that. But also because of, you know, these ideas about fictive kinship and what is it? Fictive kinship is Michael Dawson's idea, right? It's a political science idea. And linked fate is the other political science idea. Because of that, right? We're like, oh, if you're shameless, you're gonna hurt the rest of us. You know, something I tweeted, but didn't necessarily, I haven't had an opportunity to talk about it any other place, was I decided to do some research, you know, to go a little bit deeper on the idea of linked fate, which is this idea that if you are a marginalized person, it comes from political science, and it's if you are a marginalized person, then you believe that your life outcomes are going to be dictated by how other people who share your demographic or identity categories, what happens in their lives. And that's, you know, oldish research, right? Like almost 30 years old at this point. And the research, when it first came out, was pointed directly at Black people, right? Michael Dawson. But the newer research about the idea of linked fate, it underscores that it's not just Black people who believe that what happens to the people who share our identity categories will have huge impacts on our life outcomes and our opportunities. It's all kinds of people. Like white people feel like what happens to other white people, right? So this idea that like white people get to be individuals and Black people don't is actually not true. Like, based on the newer research, based on the newer political science and sociological research, that's actually not how people are operating now. Now, even white folks say we're linked together. And I'm not even sure if that's a new thing. It's just now being studied. And so when we realize that it's not just Black folks or Latinx folks, even though the Latinx identity does not cohere, that's really an identity that does not cohere. In the research that I looked at said the Latinx people do not care about each other. But it's all kinds of people who say, whoa, bitch, we got to link together, okay? Because if our ship goes down, then we're all fucked. And that, you know, it makes perfect sense when we think about the violence, you know, the Trump era, you know, makes perfect sense. We all think like that. What's next on my list of random ideas I had? Oh, intelligence. Oh my God, it's 1:10. Kimberly, you have to be done in 20 minutes. Okay, what are you gonna do? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna do something to my hair? Probably not. We're gonna do a jazzy. We're gonna flip, and we're just gonna give you tousled. We're gonna give you tousled. Okay. Sorry. The other idea that came up for me when I was watching, I'm sorry that the internet connection is so bad in my bathroom. The internet connection is only good in the living room. I tried to fix it, but I live in a concrete box. So sorry. The next thing I just bought, this is not the next thing, but I'm just thinking, I just bought this new, it's like a tinted moisturizer, and I wish I had picked that up because I don't want to put on heavy foundation. I want tinted moisturizer today, but I didn't go pick up my packages, so I don't have that. I just want a little coverage, okay? I just want a little coverage. Not a lot of coverage today, because that's going to be freaking annoying. And then, you know, the other thing is, or maybe I'll just do powder. What if I just do a powder? Let me do my brows. By the way, I did not get my eyebrows microbladed. I go get them tinted because the woman that I'm going to go to get my eyebrows microbladed, I literally made the appointment in February and her first opening was in May. So I'm just going to, until then, I just go get my eyebrows tinted every couple of weeks. And dude, when your eyebrows are basically done, you're basically done. You're basically done. So let me, okay. I do need to put some toner on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do skincare because I went to bed last night without doing skincare. Oh, you know what I didn't talk about? I got the second dose of the vaccine on Thursday. And I got it at like 10:30 in the morning. And I'm so, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited. Like I'm so excited to be mobile again. The CDC said that you can travel if you're vaccinated. So we got 2 weeks, super excited. But wow, I really experienced some side effects. I mean, I was really, really sick in February. Like I got really sick about the third week of February, and it wasn't that, but it was almost that. It was, I had a fever, my body was achy, I had chills, I had a headache. I felt like my sinuses were like for about, I want to say about 24 hours. And then now I feel perfectly fine. So, I mean, it started around like 9 or 10 p.m. the night that I got it. And then I was like, oh, my body hurts, you know? And then I was just like, couldn't sleep. And I was getting chills. And then I was fine. I mean, basically all day yesterday, I was just like in bed. But by the time I went to bed yesterday, I was fine. So, but, you know, also I've heard that women have stronger immune responses to the second dose of the vaccine. But also younger people have stronger immune responses. And I'm still, you know, still a young person. So that definitely happened. And so it's working. Because another one of my weird random paranoias was like, what if they don't actually give me the vaccine? Like, what if, because there was just a story on the news recently where somebody went to like a Kroger or something, and the pharmacy person like injected them with saline on accident. And it's like, but now I know, I definitely got the vaccine. I'm definitely vaccinated. So that's exciting. So, you know, just be on the lookout for that. Okay, it's 1:14, so we're really gonna not have a lot of time. Let me just refresh to see if there's anything that I'm missing. Oh, okay. What other things are on my, intelligence as a means to an end. Okay, so I'm obsessed with like all of these little throwaway ideas that are in this book. And one little throwaway idea, a character detail that Britt Bennett includes about Blake, who is Stella's husband, is that he only valued intelligence not like as a means to like exploring ideas or bettering yourself, but only as a means to making more money. And like that really, really got me thinking, because so many people, and I would say so many men in particular, like view intelligence the same way. In fact, I think I'm a smart person because I've been told I'm smart forever, right? Like, intelligence is kind of socially constructed. But something I've really been trying to move away from for the last couple of years is, what does that mean? Is that the highest value? No, because I know many very smart people who fucking work at Bain, like I know really like many very smart people who work at Goldman Sachs. So it's like, so what does that even mean? Right? So like, what is the use of intelligence if we're just using it to fuck up people's lives? It doesn't really mean anything. I think about that a lot, right? Like, we all have these ideas and characteristics that we pride ourselves in, but like, what does it mean? What else is on my list here? Man, do I even want, low key, I might not even put on makeup. I'm not even sure that I am in a makeup mood today. We might put on some concealer around the eyes, do a little bit of powder, do lip gloss and mascara, because I'm just not feeling it. The fact that I'm not, and you know what? Like, sometimes you're not feeling it. Sometimes you're not. Another thing that came up was when Blake was talking about Peg Davis, who is Stella's white feminist mentor in the math department. Blake, who is a misogynist, a benevolent misogynist, was like, oh, all she has is her politics. And I know that like we're not supposed to like that because he's trying to be derogatory to the woman who is not trying to fuck with the patriarchy, or white patriarchy at least. But I think a lot about, do I have things other than my politics? What am I building my life around? I love this work. I love this work. I love to talk about ideas. I love to talk about theory. But, building a life that's only about ideas and theory, that can only take you so far. How much joy can you really find in that? And so that little thing really, right? Like, you have to build your life around more than theories. But that's where people get fucked up, right? Because it's like where the theory ends and where life starts, that's where people be fucking up. That little liminal space. Oh yeah, that's the hard part. But like, that's where the actual living is. All right, next idea. So I was randomly reading an article in Texas Monthly about the man who was the first accredited Black Black architect in Dallas. First of all, I mean, he's from Houston. First of all, I did not know, and I don't know, maybe I just don't really pay attention to this kind of stuff. But the UT Austin didn't start allowing Black people to go there until like the 50s, and Black undergraduates couldn't go there until the late 50s. That's only 70, like, you know, when we're talking about inequality in this country, when we are talking about the wealth gap, the income gap, when we're talking about how all of these structures are rooted in the exploitation and exclusion of Black people, it's like all these little details, we don't really dig deep into the details. You know what I'm saying? It's like my grandma couldn't go to college. Literally couldn't go to college. Like literally would not be allowed in unless you were going to, I'm from Oklahoma and Alabama. Literally could only go to Langston, or my father went to Tuskegee. It was like, these people literally couldn't. So when we're talking about like, oh, catch up and pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, it's like, but I know there's nothing to hold on to. But we all know that. So anyways, I was reading about the first accredited licensed Black architect in Texas and his beautiful house, you know, modernist house, and how he would host all of these really prominent civil rights figures and political figures in his house. And because nobody would hire him because he got licensed in the 50s, and he basically had to sue the University of Texas to even like allow him in. And wait, no, he didn't sue them, but somebody sued the University of Texas to desegregate. And then 2 days after that lawsuit was won, then he signed up to get a degree in architecture from the University of Texas, a master's degree. So anyways, but he died. He died in 2012. And all he basically could make for the first years of his career, this is really stream of consciousness, Kim, but I like this. All he could really do for the first years of his career was churches, which makes so much freaking sense to me that like the only way for a Black architect in the South to really get work is to design churches. Because first of all, that's where so much capital is. So much of Black America's capital is tied up in churches. If you grew up in a Black church, you know that every church has a rolling building fund, but also thinking about how central churches were to Black life. And he wrote a thesis on, Negro America in churches when he was in grad school, because I guess he realized in grad school that was what he was where he was gonna have to go if he was gonna try to make a living in the South. And there's lines from his thesis that were basically about how churches, and he was writing this in the 50s, that were basically about how churches were trying to do as little as possible. We're the only place for Black people to experience a sense of somebodyness, right? And of course, in 2021, we can say not queer Black folks, not trans Black folks, whatever. But what he was trying to underscore is if you were able to sufficiently perform normative gender, that you would be out in the world and you would be a maid or a waiter or an elevator operator, but then you would be able to come into the church and be important. You could be a deacon, you could be an usher, you could be a preacher, right? And so in that way, historically, Black churches, specifically in the South, offered people a kind of respite and a way for them to tap into their humanity. You know, I have lots of obvious critiques of Christianity and the way that Black folks engage with Christianity in particular, but I never want to, that's enough. Oh, I'm talking to myself. I'm not putting on any more foundation. But also I understand the historical context, right? I understand the draw of it. I do. And so I thought that was really, really an interesting thing. And also one of the reasons why church is so hard for people to give up. because of that access to somebodyness within church. Again, this is for not everybody, but the people who do have access to it, right? They feel good and comfortable being able to have that space where they can feel good and important, right? Outside of, white supremacist structures. But also because of the community element. I mean, I will absolutely say that when I have a video about this up on Patreon, right? About how when I was out of school, I became really, really religious and joined a new church and hung out with all of my church friends because that was the only space where I could find a youngish community. I don't think that there are any structures that have been able to replicate that. And so if we're talking about why the church needs to go, I'm very sympathetic to that idea. I am. Oh gosh. We're just going to do powder now. We're just going to powder it out. We're just going to buff it out. And then we're going to be done because I'm not doing any more makeup. I'm very sympathetic to the idea of why the church needs to go. But we also have to think about, okay, so what are we building up so that people don't feel like the only thing that they have is this? Because I would even venture to say, truly, are most people really religious for real? Most people don't even really be studying the Bible like that. It's like most people are religious, but they're not really studying the Bible like that. Like I have learned more, frankly, about Christianity and the history outside of church. And I was deep, hardcore in church. So, I mean, obviously now in the United States, there's all of these new polls that come out that say that the fewest percentage of Americans in American history call themselves Christian or religious, right? Like people are moving away from it because the things that church once offered are just not as appealing. But there are always going to be people who are stuck there. And a part of it is, people just want to be dominant. They want to participate in structures of domination. But I think that there are these other things. So what are we going to build up so that people can get their needs met? The big abolitionist, talking point is it cannot just be about destruction, right? It has to be about building. So what's being built? What do we have? What are we making? I don't know. Other things. What time is it? Oh God, it's 1:28. I have like 10 more minutes. I mean, the thing, I'm not supposed to log on until 1:45. Oh, next thing on my list is, do I want to buy a house? No. Every once in a while, I, ask myself, what do I want to do with money? How do I want to spend it? How do I want to live? And for years, the thing that has come up over and over again is buy a house. Don't you want more space? Don't you want a yard? Don't you want multiple bathrooms? And no, not really. Not really. Not really. And like, I think even, now, I've talked about the ongoing back and forth and battle with stuff. I don't just want to get more space. Okay, first of all, I feel like my eyelashes are doing pretty good. I've been using Latisse, okay? I've been using Latisse. And I have no eyelashes, okay? I'm just one of those people who don't have any eyelashes. Sorry, I'm moving from topic to topic. And I've tried eyelash extensions. I'm allergic to them. And they rip out your natural lashes. So I decided to try Latisse. And I feel like it's working. I do. But maybe I'm just being delusional. But I feel like it's working. Anyways, there's just so much pressure. Or maybe this is just pressure that I've made up in my mind. I do feel pressured to like buy bigger and house or condo and more space and more rooms and more. And it's like, do I need that? But also that's more financial obligation. So I say all the time, the thing that I like the most about my life and the thing that I value the most is freedom. Okay. And the only way to be able to maintain the level of freedom that I have right now is by not taking on more and more liabilities. The only way that I'm not going to have to start doing shit I don't want to do and partner with people I don't want to partner with and make videos I don't want to make is by accruing as few liabilities as possible. And so, right, like I plan on taking a trip every 3 weeks until October. I can't do that if I have a $3,000 a month mortgage, even though a $3,000 a month mortgage where I live is like a really big house. That's like a really big house. But even if I had a, $1,800 a month mortgage, and then you add on insurance on that, and then you add on all the other shit, it's just like, that stops me from being able to move around. And so until I don't want to move around, there's no reason for me to do that. I want to hang out. I want to have fun. I want to have brunch with my friends. I'm trying to go to like 5 different beaches this summer. Okay. And you cannot do that if you're tied down to a 15 or 30-year mortgage. I mean, you can do that, but then you have to do stuff you don't want to do. And I'm not doing no shit I don't want to do. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Okay. What else do I have? Do I even have anything else? Oh, Kimberly, it's time to go. That's it, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry the Wi-Fi is bad. Bye.